Message of His Holiness Pope Francis for the 56th World Day of Peace, 1st of January 2023. No one can be saved alone. Combating COVID-19 together, embarking together on paths of peace. Now, concerning the times and the seasons, brothers and sisters, you do not need to have anything written to you, for you yourselves know very well that the day of the Lord will come like a thief in the night. With these words, the Apostle Paul encouraged the Thessalonian community to remain steadfast, their hearts and feet firmly planted, and their gaze fixed on the world around them and the events of history, even as they awaited the Lord's return. When tragic events seem to overwhelm our lives, and when we feel plunged into a dark and difficult maelstrom of injustice and suffering, we are likewise called to keep our hearts open to hope and to trust in God, who makes himself present, accompanies us with tenderness, sustains us in our weariness, and above all, guides our path. For this reason, St. Paul constantly exhorts the community to be vigilant, seeking goodness, justice, and truth. So then, let us not fall asleep as others do, but let us keep awake and be sober. His words are an invitation to remain alert and to not withdraw into fear, sorrow, or resignation, or to yield to distraction or discouragement. Instead, we should be like sentinels keeping watch and ready to glimpse the first light of dawn, even at the darkest hour. COVID-19 plunged us into a dark night. It destabilized our daily lives, upset our plans and routines, and disrupted the apparent tranquility of even the most affluent societies. It generated disorientation and suffering and caused the death of great numbers of our brothers and sisters. Amid a whirlwind of unexpected challenges and facing a situation confusing even from a scientific standpoint, the world's healthcare workers mobilized to relieve immense suffering and to seek possible remedies. At the same time, political authorities had to take measures to organize and manage efforts to respond to the emergency. In addition to its physical aspects, COVID-19 led to a general malaise in many individuals and families. The long periods of isolation and the various restrictions on freedom contributed to this malaise with significant long-term effects. Nor can we overlook the fractures in our social and economic order that the pandemic exposed and the contradictions and inequalities that it brought to the fore. It threatened the job security of many individuals and aggravated the ever-increasing problem of loneliness in our societies, particularly on the part of the poor and those in need. We need but think of the millions of informal workers in many parts of the world left without a job and without any support during the time of the lockdown. Only rarely do individuals and societies achieve progress in conditions that generate such feelings of despondency and bitterness, which weaken efforts to ensure peace while provoking social conflict, frustration, and various forms of violence. Indeed, the pandemic seems to have upset even the most peaceful parts of our world and exposed any number of forms of fragility. 3 years later, the time is right to question, learn, grow, and allow ourselves to be transformed as individuals and as communities. This is a privileged moment to prepare for the day of the Lord. I have already observed on a number of occasions that we never emerge the same from time of crisis. We emerge either better or worse. Today we are being asked, what did we learn from the pandemic? What new paths should we follow to cast off the shackles of our old habits, to be better prepared, to dare new things? What signs of life and hope can we see to help us move forward and to try to make our world a better place? Certainly, after directly experiencing the fragility of our own lives and the world around us, we can say that the greatest lesson we learned from COVID-19 was the realization that we all need one another, that our greatest and yet most fragile treasure is our shared humanity as brothers and sisters, children of God, and that none of us can be saved alone. Consequently, we urgently need to join together in seeking and promoting the universal values that can guide the growth of this human fraternity. We also learned that the trust we put in progress, technology, and the effects of globalization was not only excessive, but turned into an individualistic and idolatrous intoxication, compromising the very promise of justice, harmony, and peace that we so ardently sought. In our fast-paced world, the widespread problems of inequality, injustice, poverty, and marginalization continue to fuel unrest and conflict and generate violence and even wars. The pandemic brought all this to the fore. Yet also, it had its positive effects. These include a chastened return to humility, a rethinking of certain consumeristic excesses, and a renewed sense of solidarity that has made us more sensitive to the suffering of others and more responsive to their needs. We can also think of the efforts, which in some cases proved truly heroic, made by all those people who worked tirelessly to help everyone emerge from the crisis and its turmoil as best they could. The experience has made us all the more aware of the need for everyone, including peoples and nations, to restore the word together to a central place. For it is together, in fraternity and solidarity, that we build peace, ensure justice, and emerge from the greatest disasters. Indeed, the most effective responses to the pandemic came from social groups, public and private institutions, and international organizations that put aside their particular interests and joined forces to meet the challenges. Only the peace that comes from a fraternal and disinterested love can help us overcome personal, societal, and global crises. Even so, at the very moment when we dared to hope that the darkest hours of the COVID-19 pandemic were over, a terrible new disaster befell humanity. We witnessed the onslaught of another scourge, another war, to some extent like that of COVID-19, but driven by culpable human actions. The war in Ukraine is reaping innocent victims and spreading insecurity, not only among those directly affected, but in a widespread and indiscriminate way for everyone, also for those who, even thousands of kilometers away, suffer its collateral effects. We need but think of grain shortages and fuel prices. Clearly, this is not the post-COVID era we had hoped for or expected. This war, together with all the other conflicts around the globe, represents a setback for the whole of humanity, and not merely for the parties directly involved. While a vaccine has been found for COVID-19, suitable solutions have not yet been found for the war. Certainly, the virus of war is more difficult to overcome than the viruses that compromise our bodies, because it comes not from outside of us, but from within the human heart corrupted by sin. What then is being asked of us? First of all, to let our hearts be changed by our experience of the crisis, to let God, at this time in history, transform our customary criteria for viewing the world around us. We can no longer think exclusively of carving out space for our personal or national interests. Instead, we must think in terms of the common good, recognizing that we belong to a greater community and opening our minds and hearts to universal fraternity. We cannot continue to focus simply on preserving ourselves. Rather, the time has come for all of us to endeavor to heal our society and our planet, to lay the foundations for a more just and peaceful world, and to commit ourselves seriously to pursuing a good that is truly common. In order to do this, and to live better lives after the COVID-19 emergency, we cannot ignore one fundamental fact, namely that the many moral, social, political, and economic crises we are experiencing are all interconnected, and what we see as isolated problems are actually causes and effects of one another. Consequently, we are called to confront the challenges of our world in a spirit of responsibility and compassion. We must revisit the issue of ensuring public health for all. We must promote actions that enhance peace and put an end to the conflicts and wars that continue to spawn poverty and death. We urgently need to join in caring for our common home and in implementing clear and effective measures to combat climate change. We need to battle the virus of inequality and to ensure food and dignified labor for all, supporting those who lack even a minimum wage and find themselves in great difficulty. The scandal of entire peoples starving remains an open wound. We also need to develop suitable policies for welcoming and integrating migrants and those whom our societies discard. Only by responding generously to these situations, with an altruism inspired by God's infinite and merciful love, will we be able to build a new world and contribute to the extension of His kingdom, which is a kingdom of love, justice, and peace. In sharing these reflections, it is my hope that in the coming new year we can journey together, valuing the lessons that history has to teach us. I offer my best wishes to heads of state and government, to heads of international organizations, and to the leaders of the different religions. To all men and women of goodwill, I express my prayerful trust that, as artisans of peace, they may work day by day to make this a good year. May Mary Immaculate, Mother of Jesus and Queen of Peace, intercede for us and for the whole world. From the Vatican, 8th of December, 2022. Please, if there is truly the level of monitoring the lives of people, if you can see through the camera here, if you're watching me because I'm talking about this, please, dialogue, make for peace, be peacemakers. It doesn't matter who you are. Biden, Putin, Trump, President Xi Jinping, Kim Jong-un, everybody. Please. Everything is constant fighting, constant war, constant disagreement. Many times I have felt like ending it all for myself because I cannot stand this. My soul is in anguish every single day. Sometimes I feel like all my tears have been cried and then they come again anew. Please. My queen, please. Do not let us destroy this beautiful world by our greed and lust for power. Oremus pro Beatissimo Papa Nostro Francesco, Dominus conservat eam et vivificat eam, et beatum faciat eam in terra, et non tredat eam in animam inimicorum eis. Oremus et pro antistate nostro Timotheus, stet et pascat in fortitudine tua, Domine, in sublimitate nominis tui.